Mr. Speaker, Chuck Cadman was a man of great integrity. But now we learn that the Conservative Party tried to bribe him and that the Prime Minister was aware of it. But Mr. Cadman could not be bought. Standing Order 23(1) states, the offer of any money of other advantage to any member of this House for the promoting of any matter whatsoever, depending or to be transacted in Parliament, is a high crime and tends to the subversion of the Constitution. What was the Prime Minister thinking?
As I said earlier, Mr. Speaker, this story was raised with me 2.5 years ago. I looked into it. There is absolutely no truth in it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the officials who were at the meeting have been very clear about what transpired. And Mr. Speaker, Chuck Cadman himself on national television the day of that historic vote also indicated that this story is not true. Chuck Cadman said he discussed nomination meetings with Conservative officials. He said that was the only offer on anything that I had from anybody. So the question, Mr. Speaker, is why we have a deceased colleague here who was highly respected. Why will the leader of the Liberal Party not accept his word?
Not only was trying to bribe Chuck Cadman was an insult to his honor and integrity. Not only was it morally and ethically wrong, but it was against the law. Again, I asked the Prime Minister, what was he thinking?
Mr. Speaker, I knew Chuck Cadman very well. He was a fine man who had experienced tremendous tragedy in his life and had brought that passion to do something about that into politics. His wife is our candidate in Surrey North. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition would have us believe that Chuck Cadman was offered a bribe, then went on national television to deny it ever happened. This is completely false, completely irresponsible, and I think the Leader of the Opposition should give an apology to the entire country.
Is he saying that the widow of Chuck Cadman is lying? Is he saying that a Conservative candidate is lying?
Obviously, these men were in positions of power. Why did the Prime Minister send these two people to offer a bribe to a dying man?
The Prime Minister of the Phony Accountability Act refuses to come clean about the Conservative envoys who tried to bribe Chuck Cadman.
That's right. Allegations that shadowy Conservative operatives offered a bribe to Chuck Cadman in exchange for his vote in 2005 go far beyond the boundaries of acceptable partisan activity. It is outrageous, an insult to the integrity of the political process, and shows the depths to which this government is willing to sink to seize power. Will this Prime Minister apologise? Apologise to this House of Commons and apologise for this outrageous and illegal political behaviour.
The insult is to the integrity of Chuck Cadman, who stated when he was alive, on the very day that we're talking about, that no such offer was made. The insult to the integrity of our Parliament is that Liberals do not respect that and continue to ask these questions in this House. Every single scandal they chase does not exist. The one about Chuck Cadman, his own words say it doesn't exist. The one about the Minister of the Environment, the police say it doesn't exist. The one they're talking about now with Jim Hart, exact same thing. The police say it does not exist. And I could go on and on and on. They raise the issues. They tell the police to go chase them down. The police investigate and say, guess what? This government is clean. Its ministers are clean. And what do? They accuse the police of being involved in cover-ups. Come on, get with it. We don't control the OPP. We have a clean government. There are scandals usually relate to appointments that aren't made, contracts that aren't delivered, political interference that never happened. It's nothing, just like their policies, just like their leadership.
The book about Mr. Cadman also quotes none other than the Prime Minister as mentioning, quote, the offer to Chuck, end of quote. So an offer was made, but the standing orders of this House say any offer of money or advantage is a high crime and misdemeanor. why did the Prime Minister authorize any offer to be made?
The member from Wisconsin is factually wrong, and it seems the Liberals know no depth in terms of how far they will go to try to smear people without any evidence, without any backing whatsoever. He should listen to Chuck Cadman's words themselves. Chuck Cadman said no offer was made. It didn't happen. Have you no shame, Ralph? Have you no shame that Chuck Cadman said no offer was made?
In an unprecedented move, Prime Minister Stephen Harper threatened to sue Liberal leader Stéphane Dion and other Liberal MPs over statements on the party's website about the Chuck Cadman Affair. Those statements accuse Conservatives of trying to bribe Cadman to vote against the Liberal budget in 2005, and that Stephen Harper knew it. The notice of libel demands the following apology. Last week, Mr. Ignatieff, Mr. Goodale and I made defamatory statements falsely claiming that Prime Minister Stephen Harper acted illegally in matters concerning former British Columbia MP Chuck Cadman. Today, we acknowledge that the Prime Minister has acted ethically, morally, and legally, and retract the statements we made to the contrary. We apologize to the Prime Minister for the unfounded attacks made on his reputation.
It's going to take much more than threat of lawsuit from stopping us from getting to the truth.
The truth is that in the past several months, as the problems of the Liberal Party and its leader have mounted, they have engaged, Mr. Speaker, in more and more extreme accusations, going to the point last week, Mr. Speaker, of publishing on their website a series of false and unfounded allegations of criminal misconduct on my part. Mr. Speaker, the truth is that this will prove to be, in court, the biggest mistake the leader of the Liberal Party has ever made.
Will the Prime Minister call in the RCMP to investigate immediately?
The leader of the opposition should know that the government does not direct the activity of police authorities. Once again, Mr. Speaker, the leader of the Liberal Party today in his questions repeated once again an allegation that there is $1 million bribe offered. We will be watching very interestedly, Mr. Speaker, to see after question period whether the leader of the Liberal Party publishes those questions on his website.
But while the Liberals kept up their accusations in the House of Commons, where their comments are protected against prosecution, they refused outside the House, where they are not protected, to repeat the specific allegations they've made against Stephen Harper on the party's website.
The Liberals had advance notice of these allegations last year because the former Prime Minister Paul Martin got an advance copy of the book to write the foreword. Why didn't Liberals go public with the allegations earlier or go to the police with them when they first learned of them instead of waiting until now to ask the Mounties to investigate?
Great question.
Well, that would be a question for Mr. Martin. I didn't see the book. I wasn't aware of the book until it broke in the media. I don't know if Mr. Martin had read the full book or just written the foreword. Those would be questions that only he could answer.
Right. Are they questions you would like answered before you go any further with, if it turns out that Liberals knew of this last year?
Well, I think it's important that we get to the truth. We had financial considerations offered to a member of Parliament to bring down the government. That sounds like
you'll agree.
The timing is extraordinary.
You'll agree that there is some interest in the timing here of why these allegations are. Why, if the Liberals had advance notice of it, it's just coming out now.
You're saying the Liberals. I had no advance notice. I understand that our leader didn't either. If Mr. Martin had, then those are questions that should be put directly to him.
Okay, Pat Martin, what are your thoughts on the timing of all of this?
Well, this is just it. I mean, Mark Marrison, the head of the BC Liberal Party, and I think he's on the national EPC with David Smith, got a copy of the book, we're told, on February 15th, 2007. And Paul Martin, I can't imagine a former Prime Minister writing the foreword to a book that he'd never read. What if it was full of all kinds of things he didn't want to be associated with? I honestly don't believe they would do that.
I think this is clearly an example of the Liberals sitting on this, hoping that it would come out. Let me finish. Hoping that either if we had an election, this would be a bomb in the middle of an election, or now they can use it as a distraction from his weak leadership on the budget. It's just the timing is impeccable, and the fact that they had it for so long really makes you wonder, why did it come out now?
The Prime Minister has got to come clean, Peter. There's something really fishy about this. It stinks, and I mean, it looks and walks and quacks like an illegal duck. So we've got to know what it is.
Right, but also today, you know, it was very hard to find Liberals today who would repeat the allegation that's contained on their website, which as we speak is still there.
Yeah, are you saying that he committed a criminal act? Are you saying the Prime Minister of Canada committed a criminal act?
I'm saying that the RCMP needs to have a good look at what's going on, because there are many different stories floating around, and the Prime Minister has not denied. The Prime Minister has not denied those statements on the tape. He's not denied that there was some kind of offer of some kind of financial considerations.
But do we know there was a criminal act committed?
Well, I think the RCMP should have a good look.
Right, but your website says the Prime Minister knew of a criminal act.
Well, the Prime Minister has not stood up and said that he did not.
Why didn't Liberals, if they saw this in the book, take it to the Mounties?
I heard Michael Ignatieff say on another show just before I came here tonight, Peter, that he opened it and he heard about it when he read it in the newspaper last week.
Well, that's him. But what about party officials?
Well, I can't speak for all the party officials, but certainly
if they knew about it last year, was it wrong to not bring it to the Mounties then?
I don't know who knew what when. If you're looking at an unedited manuscript of a book, or you're looking to, why did it go to the Globe and Mail now? I mean,
I'm just asking the question.
Why didn't the reporter go forward with it?
If Liberals knew about this last year, should they have gone to the Mounties?
Why didn't the reporter go forward with it, Peter? I mean, who knows if he's looking to do this to promote? There's book sales and all that kind of stuff.
Should they have gone to the Mounties?
I think if the Liberals knew about it last year, then they should have come forward with it then. And there are issues around timing.
What did the Prime Minister mean on the tape when he talked about financial considerations?
Mr. Speaker, I have answered that question on numerous occasions. Mr. Speaker, but the real point is that the leader of the Liberal Party and his party have already said, they've already said publicly that I offered a bribe in the form of a life insurance policy to a man who was critically ill with cancer. That's their story, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just like they retracted their position on the budget last night, they will eventually want to retract that particular policy as well.
The Prime Minister talked about financial issues, financial considerations, financial insecurity. Will the Prime Minister admit that he was talking about addressing Mr. Cadman's financial insecurity in exchange for his vote?
Absolutely not, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've been absolutely clear that what the party was talking to Chuck Cadman about was the financing of an election campaign. That's been absolutely clear, not just clear from me, clear from party officials, and clear by the statements of Chuck Cadman himself when he was alive in 2005.
The Prime Minister said on the tape, don't press it on Chuck. It will not work. The Prime Minister said it will not work. Never he said it's wrong, it's illegal. Why not?
The credibility of the Leader of the Opposition's own behavior on this is pretty clear. Mr. Speaker, it is very clear for months the Liberal Party has no issues, so they are resorting to smear and to allegations of scandal. Mr. Speaker, this is a party that, while it says we're guilty of corruption, votes to keep us in office. This is the same party, Mr. Speaker, that brings in a non-confidence motion against the NDP. And Mr. Speaker, this is a party and a leader who yesterday gives the Bloc and the Separatists advice on how to win the next referendum. Quite a show he's running over there.
For 2 weeks now, the Prime Minister has refused to tell Canadians the truth about what he said on the tape. Why won't the Prime Minister come clean and tell Canadians what he was talking about on the tape? Or will he admit that the only thing transparent about his government is that Canadians see right through it?
Mr. Speaker, for the past couple of weeks, both inside and outside of Parliament, the Liberal Party and its agents have been making allegations against me of a criminal nature. that are absolutely false, that are despicable. Mr. Speaker, we've been absolutely clear, as was Chuck Cadman during his life, about what transpired. Mr. Speaker, today my representatives have filed a statement of claim in a court of law, and I look forward, Mr. Speaker, to seeing the Leader of the Opposition actually let this go to trial so he can hear the whole truth and admit his own role in it.
Canadians will be asking him to explain the tape, and they have the right to know. Where will he hide?
We're all going to be very curious to find out how it was that the leader of the Liberal Party and his party came up with an incomplete and edited version of a conversation 3 years after an event. We're all looking forward to that explanation.
The RCMP has finished its investigation into allegations of bribery in the so-called Cadman Affair and found there is no evidence to support filing charges.
In the scandal-charged atmosphere of this Parliament, today's statement from the RCMP gives the political advantage to the Conservatives.
The RCMP has found no evidence of any wrongdoing by the Prime Minister or by the Conservative Party. The Liberals made fabricated accusations.
The Liberals asked the RCMP to investigate whether Conservatives tried to bribe Chuck Cadman in 2005. The independent MP was terminally ill with cancer at the time. His vote would either save or topple the then minority Liberal government. A book released this year alleged Conservative officials offered him a $1 million life insurance policy in exchange for his vote. The Liberals attacked furiously.
It's a bribe.
In Parliament and on their website, where they linked the Prime Minister directly to the alleged bribery.
The truth is that this will prove to be, in court, the biggest mistake the leader of the Liberal Party has ever made.
Stephen Harper fought back with what's believed to be a political first for a Prime Minister. He launched a $2.5 million lawsuit against Stéphane Dion and key Liberals.
There's no evidence.
Conservatives consistently said they only offered Cadman the chance to rejoin the party and a loan if he wanted to run again.
Yeah, and Liberals will be held accountable for what they have done.
But let me ask you this, because I'm looking at your news release, and you say you fully accept the RCMP's determination that there is insufficient evidence to proceed with criminal prosecution, but your headline says the Prime Minister owes answers to Canadians on the Cadman Affair. Well, apparently the Mounties looked into it, the RCMP, and they don't think there's anything to answer for. So I'm wondering what you're talking about.
Yeah, Don, the RCMP did a criminal investigation and concluded that there's not enough evidence to lay criminal charges. We accept that. That's their responsibility, and we respect that conclusion. In our view, though, the ethical obligation of a Prime Minister has to be something greater than simply the basic evidentiary rules of the criminal code and evidence law with respect to criminal prosecutions. We've asked Mr. Harper over and over again in the House of Commons what he meant when he talked on a tape in his own voice about financial considerations and an offer to Chuck.
The New Democrats have not been very keen on these so-called scandals, preferring to go after bread and butter economic issues. In your mind, does this RCMP letter mean the end of it?
I think it means that it's time that both the government and the Liberals start to really focus on the real issues. And it's because Canadians don't want to spend, don't want to see us spending all the time in Parliament, in parliamentary committees, basically dragging something out on which the RCMP has said there is no basis for laying charges. For God's sakes, let Chuck Cadman rest in peace, let his family move on, and let's deal with the real issues. But, you know, we've got a Liberal opposition that doesn't actually want to deal with the real issues, so they keep dredging up and dredging up and dredging up Chuck Cadman. I mean, let's
the Conservatives keep on getting baited. We have been talking about the issues.
If I could just get in for 1 second here, Mike. The reality is that the Liberals invented a smear. They made up allegations. Now the RCMP has dismissed those allegations and said there is absolutely no evidence of wrongdoing on the part of the Conservative government. Now the Liberals will have to face accountability for their actions. They are just starting to learn the real consequences, the real legal consequences of what they've gotten themselves into.
Pierre, I have to say accountability and
Can I just hold on 1 second? I think I'm getting a hint here. Did I just hear you obliquely reference the Prime Minister's lawsuit against Stéphane Dion?
Well, the reality is that they manufactured these smears, and now Stéphane Dion and the Liberal Party are going to be accountable for what they've done.
Mike, if I could just say, first of all, Harper and the Conservative government need to realize they have to stop being bullies. At the end of the day, they talk about accountability, they talk about transparency, but it has been nothing but hypocrisy.
I think the pressure remains on the shoulders of Mr. Harper. The pressure remains on his shoulder. He needs to explain himself. It's his voice that we hear on the tape. He's speaking about financial considerations for Mr. Cadman. He never explained what that meant, and it's time for him to explain it. And we fully respect the view of the RCMP. Mr. Cadman passed away, he cannot testify, and we understand that, but it does not put the pressure away. The Prime Minister must explain himself.